I'm Phil Klay, age 31, writer, veteran of the Iraq War.
This is a compassionate nation. This is a decent nation. This nation is strong enough and focused enough and dedicated enough.
It happened for a variety of reasons. I, was never actually a big military obsessed guy. I think if you told me when I was a kid that I would join the military, I wouldn't have believed you. But around the time that I was joining up, we were engaged in war as a country. That was the huge project that my nation was engaged in. My family had always had a respect for the idea of service, though neither of my parents were in the military. My father was in the Peace Corps. My mother had worked in development work for, international aid. Of my four brothers and I, three of us ended up joining the military. And so I wanted to put myself in a position where I'd be able to hopefully influence events, even if in a small way, for the better. And the Marine Corps appealed to me for a whole variety of reasons. It's the toughest branch of service. It's very rigorous. It had a particular ethos that I liked and that appealed to me. And, I was a 20-year-old at the time when I was making the decision. So all of the other factors that apply to 20-year-olds and the major decisions that they make applied to me. I'd never written about war before. But when I came back from Iraq, it changed the way that I thought about writing. I had a subject that felt very vital to me. I came back from Iraq thinking, what the hell was that? Not just what I'd been through, but what the people I'd known had been through. Because of my job, I was a media officer. I ended up traveling a lot through the province. I ended up spending time with a lot of different types of Marines and soldiers and sailors. So I came back with a lot of questions, and writing for me it's a way of thinking things through and a way of sparking dialogue with other people as you send your stories out to friends and they give you commentary, and then ultimately if you publish it with a broader public. And I felt very keenly that, one, I had to figure this out for myself, or at least think more deeply about it. Two, I felt like there was a lack of a nuanced discussion about Iraq, and I wanted to try and contribute to that. And so the book is in some way my offering to that conversation that I feel really needs to happen. It's a book of 12 short stories about the Iraq War. Well, it's about experiences in Iraq. It's also about what America looks like when veterans come home. It's told from a diverse set of perspectives, people in different jobs. There's an infantryman, there's a mortuary affairs specialist whose task is preparing the bodies of the dead to be sent home. There's a chaplain, there's a foreign service officer trying to run reconstruction projects in the aftermath of a lot of short-sighted policy. There's an adjutant, there's an artilleryman who is part of a crew that fires at targets miles away and never sees the bodies of those he's had a part in killing. And so it's unified by its focus on the experience of Iraq, but it's perspectives that are meant to clash with each other, hopefully in productive ways, and get past some of the more obvious narratives about the war that we're familiar with. I didn't want one unified testament of what the Iraq War was. I wanted these different experiences that wouldn't match up. I wanted narrators who wouldn't agree with each other, who'd speak in a different language almost, depending on what they did and who they were and what job they had. I wanted to open up that sort of critical space for the reader to compare the sorts of claims that these narrators are making about their war against each other, and also a kind of unified narrative just didn't feel right for trying to describe the Iraq War. Such a long, a long and complicated war. Fragmented perspectives felt right, felt more honest to me. So there's a lot of technical language, particularly in two stories, and especially in one. It's a very short one, but I think the way that people talk is related to the way that they think. It says something about who they are, but also it says something about their relation to the reader, to the person that they're telling their story to. It says something about how close they are to that experience. And the military language, one, there's a rhythm to it. There can be a beauty to it. It can be used to obscure what you're talking about, but it can also be emotive at times. And especially for those two stories, I wanted, even at the visual level, when somebody approached that there would be an alien element in the text that signified this other culture. And so when I was writing it, I wanted to play with that language and explore the ways that it could be revealing of the characters, and also the ways in which it can be used to obscure. It's not just that you go to war and experience what you experience and come back. You go to war with all these ideas about what it will be. And then you come back to all the ideas about war, the stories about war that the culture is telling itself, and the political understandings of the war that become then projected on the veteran, and the veteran's sometimes alienated understanding of civilians that he's likely to project as well. America looks a little different. I think war often changes the way that veterans think about not just patriotism and violence and masculinity, but even more central questions. I always think of the character in Bernanos' Diary of a Country Priest, who is back from war and takes the priest on a motorcycle ride, and his time overseas, much like the narrator of Somerset Maugham's Razor's Edge, or the main character of Somerset Maugham's Razor's Edge, it's left him very skeptical of the values of his society and what it claims the values are. And he delivers this speech about justice toward the end of that book. And so I think many veterans have had that experience, either a more robustly articulated philosophical change, like in Bernanos, or just this strange alienated sense that not all is right. That there needs to be more questioning. And I think that's the stage that many of the narrators of the stories are in, and as they're struggling to figure out what that is.
Terrorists. This is a compassionate nation. This is a decent nation. This nation is strong enough and focused enough and dedicated enough